Let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the moderator, and she's going to introduce the two other panelists that we have here today. And so I'm going to introduce Ari Yu at the end. She's a seasoned tech executive and serial entrepreneur with over 25 years of leadership in emerging technologies, including blockchain, AI, and quantum computing. As a head of strategy for the Global Blockchain Business Council and founding chair of the Cascade Blockchain Council, she spearheads cross-border initiatives and economic impact and responsible integration of blockchain, AI, and quantum in the Pacific Northwest. Ari also serves as managing director of Yellow Umbrella Ventures and as executive in residence at 1871's Web3 Innovation Lab, advises startups on AI-driven strategy. A respected speaker and educator, Ari is deeply engaged in shaping tech policy, investment, and innovation at both state and national levels. And also, she's a member of the Milgar Executive Council and the advisor board for the dean of Milgar School of Business. So here we go, and here's Ari.
Wow.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah. So it sounds like I do a lot, but 25 years of experience as numbers. I literally just turned 46 last week, and so I was like, where did the years go? How did I turn 46? I just colored my hair so you can't see any whites. So we have with us Kyle Schnaps from DCG. DCG is one of the big OGs in the advanced technology space, mostly known for like digital currencies, Bitcoin, but they also have over 200 startup companies as part of their portfolio, so they invest, one of the top investors in this space. And then now they're working on decentralized AI, but you'll hear more from Kyle. Kyle will give a proper introduction of Kyle, and then Matt McKinney is from ArtBlock. It's a local company. They've been around for quite some time. The CEO is I call him like a mad scientist, very eccentric, very smart guy, Microsoft researcher. And so the speed at which they've been delving in and diving in and using technology is kind of off the charts. And Matt is a great translator of, this crazy wizardry of technology to normal human speak. And so, there's two different flavors of people that are working in this advanced technology space. I'm more what you call the diplomat, that kind of finesse people. So, you get the three different flavors maybe. But Kyle, give an introduction of yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Ari. Thanks all for coming today during finals week. I know that can be stressful, but I'm glad we were able to have some lunch to draw you in. As Ari said, my name is Kyle Schnaps. I'm Director of Policy for DCG. DCG got a brief description there. We have 5 subsidiary companies that focus in different parts of the digital asset space and also in the decentralized AI space. We also have, as she said, 250 portfolio companies that we are early investors in. From my side, my role is to speak to policymakers and to also run this kind of new program, which is doing some university outreach for decentralized AI. We will get more into what decentralized AI is, but part of the purpose of that is to try to bring access to AI building and participation to your average person who doesn't have the resources of a Microsoft or of a Meta or of a Google. My background, I'm a former government employee. I spent most of my career as an intelligence officer. I also worked at the White House as a fellow there before that. So have kind of done a lot of different things. Went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole 5 or 6 years ago and got very inspired by the technology and sort of the level playing field that it inspires. And so I'm all for decentralization and bringing more access to technology and to financial resources. And so that's a bit about me. Turn it over to Matt.
We're going to share this. Hey, everybody. Great to see you all. Yeah, that's, I personally want to know more about his background. I don't know about you guys. I kind of want to dive in a little more to the some parts of that. But so again, my name's Matt. I work for a company called ArtBlock. So we're actually based out of Bellevue. We are a platform to build intelligent software. So if you're looking at building with AI or you're looking at building with blockchain decentralization, ArtBlock is an enabler to that. I spend a lot of my time talking to students, businesses, builders, developers about all things related to AI. And a lot of what I focus on is, building to outcomes, right? If I'm building something, how do I actually get to the outcome I'm trying to get to? That's where I spend a lot of my time. And so it's tends to be pretty diverse, right? Just a quick survey, how many people in here actually use AI on a daily basis? Pretty much everybody, mostly. Yeah, it's a great enabler. And I think what we partially want to talk about here is going even further with that, and also the ideas of decentralization and AI, and learning to use the tools that you have. And so this is a great opportunity for everybody. So appreciate you all having us.
And so when we heard of the topic of Web3 plus blockchain plus AI and the future, our brains went to decentralized AI, dun dun dun. And so, at least from the reactions that I've seen so far, most people are not thinking about decentralized AI. And so, if you think about what's out in the media, who's advocating for our policymakers, who's pushing out all the news on the world of AI, it's the open AI guy, right? Who's not really open. Google, it's Microsoft, and they're the centralized AI players. And so you're thinking, okay, I get that. What's decentralized AI, and what's the difference, and what's the value prop here? So I'll let these guys talk about, the introduction of, it's literally Web3 or blockchain meets AI, decentralized AI, and putting the power of the data ownership, looking at data as property ownership, right? Not just an asset, but it's property. And then, code is a free speech. And where should that value go to? Should it go to our centralized, proprietors, or should we have a little more say in what's being used from our activity?
Yeah, I'll just give sort of my kind of 30,000-foot view on decentralized AI. So everybody in this room raised their hand that they're using AI on a pretty much a day-to-day basis for various things. So are we. In fact, we use centralized AI as well, because it has its own purpose and value, and it will continue to be incredibly successful and important for Americans and for the United States in general. But I think it's really important that we have a space, a carved out sandbox from a policy perspective, but also just from a human perspective, a place where people can have access to AI technology as builders, as small business owners, as students and professors. The reason why I think it's so important is because when we're using a centralized AI, we are not part of the back end of that. We do not maintain any sovereignty over our data. And we don't reap any rewards or benefits from it. In the decentralized AI space, there's the potential, and remember, we're still super early in this, but there's the potential to govern the AI that you're using as a community, right? It's a community-owned AI space. And so you're able to participate in governing it. You're able, potentially, if you have the talent, skills, will, to participate in building it. And you're also entitled to the rewards that a successful program that you build would garner. And so those are some of the things that you won't get from a centralized AI system. And again, this isn't an us versus them thing necessarily. This is, well, we need to carve out those spaces that have uniquely led to some of the greatest innovations. It was these sort of open spaces that led to the development of the internet years ago in universities and elsewhere. And it was the same thing that led to a lot of the AI research, 50, 60 years ago that today has actually reached its, sort of applicable point to our daily lives. So we want to carve out that space so that students, professors, small businesses, and independent developers can actually access and build on this technology without a sort of top-down ownership from a corporation that can tell you how to do it, that can cut you off at a moment's notice, that can have inherent biases, and that doesn't have any egalitarian principles.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I have any more to add to that. It's a great description. For me, I'm someone who, in fact, has been through blockchain, Web3,
And-
AI, cloud, kind of all the above. And I will show my age. And in Web3, I think some people now call it like Web5, Web7, right? Which is really just pertaining kind of like decentralization of like cloud computing as part of that. But just the point I would make here with all of you, and whether you care or don't care, right? This is about control. It's about your data. It's about the ability to make decisions as you use, compute, as you use AI, as you interact with the internet, so to speak. And it's really that's empowering you, right, to have the ability to make decisions. And I would bet most of you probably here have traded crypto at some point just recently. So the idea of incentivization and rewards is a very real outcome in the decentralized space, right? And being able to say, as I'm doing something, I in fact am getting tokenized incentives back in my direction for the things that I do, right? And I think that's a powerful benefit of the things that we can do. So, yeah.
I would just ask, I mean, if there are computer scientists in here, if there are engineers in here, can you just go and build an AI model? Can you just go build it and have the compute power to use it? Are you able to tap into Meta's, compute servers? Is anybody able to get, access to OpenAI's compute power here? No. And with decentralized AI, and by extension, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, you are able to, as we were talking about before, and I've heard really greatly described, it's the Airbnb of compute, right? This is how your average person can access compute. You don't have to own a giant data center, but you can own, or you can temporarily rent the compute power you need to build what you're doing as an independent developer, as a student, as a professor, as a group at universities. So for a hackathon, for instance, as we've been talking about. So this is a great equalizer, I think. And it's a practical way, I think, of using it as if you are an engineering student or a business student focusing on the technical side. I mean, this is a way of building. And if you are a participant, it's a way of maybe getting some sort of reward or at least sovereignty over the data, and you at least having a choice.
Keep going. You just keep riffing. Keep going.
I aborted my role there. But I was thinking like a different picture. So like if centralized is like your data is being extracted and going to like some centralized guy's organization's model, and they're like a Google or a Meta, right? This is the centralized model, and they're giving you some value back because there's some sort of app that they provide or usefulness. We're doing that, but the decentralized model is like you have your data and you have your outcomes you're going for, but instead of like it going into a box, you get access to a bucket of different models. You can use the Claude, you can use the Grok, you can use the GPT, you can use all the different kinds of models. You have access to that. And you can also feed it different kinds of data. And then maybe you share it, or it's your own proprietary one, but there's lots of different outcomes that you can control. Something like that. Is that a better picture? Yeah. This is my version 2.
Yeah. Yeah. We just did this right before this, by the way.
Before it was I had this like these little models over here, and then people were accessing whatever models they wanted, and they're like, yeah, that's a good one, but like what if it should be like outside of the proprietary box? Maybe you already have a box that's good.
We actually had some questions, and feel free to ask questions, though. This can be a discussion too.
It sounds like you're kind of drawing parallels to the Ether protocol, the decentralization by computing power.
Can you
Coalition. So are you guys advocating for like governing tokens to kind of like steer the direction of this AI like through weights? So you guys are going to use decentralized computational power. So that means like if I had a PC, I had like a 5080, right? I can plug into the network, be awarded from the system. Or is it more like if I live in a third world country, I basically ask someone to make a pound for me from anywhere in the network, or how exactly are you advocating for this?
Go, man.
What?
Can you repeat the question too?
It's a great question. Yeah. Do you want to say it out loud again one more time?
There's a protocol called the Acre protocol.
sure.
It's decentralized computing power, and it sounds like to me you guys are trying to utilize decentralized computational power. I'm not sure if you guys are trying to do it to either train our own AI model through this network, like our own personalized AI model, or if you're kind of push a prompt through someone that actually has access to GPT or Grok, and then have them, send the output out to the person that's putting the input in. And what about like governance tokens? Like who decides like what these weights should be? Like what type of information are we using? What's the revenue model? Because the governance is obviously for like the policies for this protocol, but yeah.
Yeah, has everybody here heard of Anchor Protocol? There's a lot of protocols out there, but so part of my background is decentralization is one of my areas in terms of specialization, right? And what he's talking about, protocol layer for sure, that would be I think the right approach, right? So if you run like a what's called like a DAO, for example, a decentralized autonomous organization, right? You can set rules around how people do things, how the incentives work. I think in this case, what we're actually going a little simpler than that. And if you think about like compute power, like as an example, like I got some GPUs from Google about 3 months ago. I had to go through 3 interviews, and I also had to tell them exactly what I was doing and give them access to all of the data that was generated from those GPUs. So part of what we're talking about, like decentralized AI, is you say, well, I'm separating Google from that conversation. Like I'm just going to go to you, and I'm going to say, well, you during the daytime, and Kyle shared a good example. Like during the daytime, you run a business and you do video media. During the afternoon and evening hours, you're not actually using your GPUs. So you simply rent those to me.
Okay.
And I consume those, right? You could, in fact, do what you're describing, though. You can actually add a layer on there to say, hey, there could potentially be governance rules around it. And each network, right, in terms of how the network works, how it exists, right? Each one could be different. I don't know specifically within DCG how they do it, right? But for sure, I think just take it real simple. If you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I've met a whole bunch of people who have, video game arcades and things like that, where they have GPUs running for a period of time, and then they want to put that out on the network, and somebody can come in, and the person giving up their compute power, right, or renting it out, can earn rewards as a result of that in whatever token the protocol uses, which can of course be exchanged for USD. On the other side of that, you have the person who is renting out that compute power, and maybe they are building their own model. One of the networks that our subsidiary Yuma focuses on is the BitTensor network, and that has a token called Tau. And we have been very much involved with that since the beginning. And so you could potentially be building out a subnet on the BitTensor network that is, let's say you're making a financial prediction model of the DAO or something like that. And you can rent out that compute power to power your model and the training and all that stuff. So, and then within that system, so the person renting out is paying out to get that, renting it, but they also are building something that could have utility for the network and users. And if it does have utility for the network and users and participants, and people start to want to validate it, and people want to start, staking their tokens on there, it can also be profitable for the person who rented out the compute power. So there is sort of this ecosystem of financial incentivization that leads the network hopefully in a good and useful place. The other example doesn't really get talked that you brought up, which is actually a great talking point. I'd love to, I spent 6 years of my life in the most remote parts of Africa you can imagine. And I could certainly, if somebody maybe doesn't have access to compute power there, to be able to get into a decentralized network and access compute power someplace else to build on their ideas, because it is, the continent of Africa has the youngest population in the world, and will be really important for innovation in the future. That's something that absolutely could happen as well.
Let's talk about security. yesterday we talked a little bit about security, Matt. You know, security is a critical concern for the digital space, especially at AI, right? Like, you know, with the just the bombing and the explosion of digital innovation, there's so much at our fingertips, but now there's so much risk. Now on top of all the phishing activity and the spams and the emails and the pixel and pixel tags and the fake URLs and all that. Now you have to deal with, are you talking to you on Zoom? Is it me? Or is it, someone pretending to be using, a fake voice of mine and a likeness of mine, right? So from your perspective, Matt, how does decentralized AI enhance security in digital space, and what are the biggest risks business should be aware of when dealing with technologies?
Such a big question.
Yeah, I think you just start there.
Yeah, great question. So this morning, there was actually an article out about Microsoft. I don't know if anybody saw it, related to Copilot and a big hack that just happened with their AI model, Copilot, which is, for me, is super interesting. It very much goes to the heart of kind of the idea of like centralized versus decentralized. I think right now I'm just going to speak purely on just the concept of decentralized identity, right? So anybody who, for example, you have a Ethereum domain name like mad.eth, for example, behind the scenes, that's actually a decentralized identity, right? It's a big long string of numbers and letters, etc. In fact, I'm not going to say anonymous, right? But it gives me the ability to be somewhat anonymous in kind of my ecosystem. And one of the things that we see with AI, and again, kind of one of the concerns I always have is, in a centralized system, there is always a potential for a breach, for a hack, for someone to get access to my information. Why AI matters in that regard is that AI is a great accelerator for data consumption. So traditionally, we're all used to using Google Sign-On, Apple Sign-On, Hotmail, whatever it may be. Every time you sign into Google, you're giving 20 data points every single time, right? Within the Google browser, right, there's several hundred data tracking components that they have every time you interact with that. And so from a security standpoint, right, as you do that, remember you're effectively creating a risk for yourself, which to me matters a lot, right? Because I've actually gone through, I'm a little older than most people here in this room. Over the last 5 years, I've had my information hacked probably 7 times, of which people have tried to get credit cards, somebody tried to get a home loan, these types of things. And so from a security standpoint, the concept of decentralization is you're getting the best of cryptography tied to my identity, right? And more importantly, with data, you have the ability to make decisions about when and where and how you share it. So again, in a decentralized AI environment, right, as I interact, these things matter in terms of decentralization. So as a company, as a business, as an organization, evaluating decentralization as a security opportunity, but also as a user benefit, can be a big priority. And I talk to businesses all the time that the reason they evaluate it is really it's about twofold. One is I'm protecting the business from risk, right? So anybody who's built a business will know, like, if you have centralized data, there's security controls that you have to put in place. There's compliance requirements. There's all sorts of things. And if you get hacked, you are in big trouble. On the other hand, if you go in decentralized, the business doesn't no longer stores your data in a centralized way, right? So they remove that risk. And then from a user perspective, right, it's the same like what I was describing, is you're basically mitigating the opportunity for people to steal your information. So it's probably not something a lot of you think about. One of the challenges with that being interoperability. So anybody who's used like an Ethereum domain name or uses, I just kind of use that example because a lot of people have them. It's not like widely accessible into all sorts of different decentralized networks, right? So if we talk about Anchor, or we talk about Ethereum, not all these things work together. And so as a business, as a user, there's risk, right? Because it doesn't necessarily translate like a Google sign-on, which pretty much works everywhere. Super convenient, right? I'd be the first person to say it's super. So the most convenient thing ever, right? I mean, and I was giving the example yesterday as over the last 5 days, I probably signed up for 25 different services with my Google sign-on. So 25 times 20, by the way. So think about that in terms of like data that I'm continuing to give to Google. So it's definitely something to consider and evaluate as you do this. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go to a different question. So, one more question for Kyle, and then a question for both of you, and then I'll open it up to you guys for more questions. But think about those, or just raise your hand if you can't hold on. All right. So Kyle, you talked about academic partnerships, and we're talking to a lot of folks in the academic world today. And so, why are you excited about academic partnerships? And you talked about it before, but I want to like hammer that one more time. What's the benefit that this group could really benefit from? Like, what is the value prop that they would receive if they take another look or take a hard look at decentralized AI and the space and taking advantage of all the resources that could be deployed here?
Yeah, I think to at first put it succinctly, I think that the major benefit to students and a university is hands-on learning experience in terms of building AI, right? Not using something that somebody else built to make your tasks easier, but actually learning how to build. And that's something that nearly every university doesn't have their own, GPU farm, right? And so I think this gives a unique capability for students to get hands-on learning experience where they can build something, they can present something. When they're going for jobs afterwards, they can show what they built. And that is a unique thing that almost every student will not have that experience. And so I think by just talking from that side of it, I think that's one of the major wins here. In an ideal world, you would be able to create something and validate on the system, on the network, and do things to earn rewards eventually for the university, where they could keep the program growing over time. I'll tell you like what's in it for me as a policymaker. As somebody who deals with policymakers, senators, folks in Congress, executive branch. I want them to see the utility of this technology, because it can seem abstract. Even centralized AI can seem abstract to a lot of policymakers. They're an inch deep and a mile wide on everything, right? And so for me, if I could have a senator or a congressman coming to the University of Washington at Tacoma and seeing students present what they've built, seeing a program that's functioning where they've actually built things. That is something where that impresses a policymaker. That is something they won't forget. That is something that will win them over for life, because it's something that benefits their constituents. And if you can show it working in a university, I think that every other university will want to do it too. And we're already seeing, this is very early. The adoption is very early, but I think more and more universities will continue to adopt this. And there are a lot of different protocols, foundations who want to work with universities to bring the technology here, even if it's, through a donation, hackathon, things like that. And so that's the sort of partnership we're looking for. And that's sort of my angle in this. It's certainly not a money-making scheme, but it is a policy-making, strategy, right? We want people to be invested and see that this actually works for people, and not just for major corporations.
There's a question.
Are you guys in have any recs for schools? What I did be here. What for you guys? Have they emerged for meal? And I say, you can sit there and no worry about that. Give a little.
I think the question's around like, are you interested in having student ambassadors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
From my side, I mean, it's certainly a possibility. For instance, if, I could envision, what is your background study for
Who major in accounting?
accounting? I mean, I think that we were having a meeting with some faculty before, and I think that is one of the opportunities here, is that there's going to be students that are much more engineering, technical computer science minded. But when it comes to building a project or having a strategic idea or a business idea, like that's something that needs different collaborations. So when I think about what you're bringing up, I mean, I think there are projects that can be built there are people who know how to communicate those ideas as well. And I could certainly see collaborations between different schools. If you have people who are more technically savvy that know how to build a project, but maybe they don't have the project, maybe they want to collaborate with business students who have an idea for something to build. And then maybe they need folks who are from other schools who have other talents who are then going to communicate those ideas for a presentation or something like that. So I think that's where it would come together. In terms of specific, like a brand ambassador on campus, we're not thinking about that necessarily, but I certainly am thinking about people who know how to communicate the message, not only, work collaboratively with other students, but also communicate it to the wider community, the university, the wider community, folks like that. So yeah, that's how I'm thinking about it. Oh.
I just actually wanted to ask one follow-up, if that's okay, on the other side of it, from the tech side. So like for me, context, I actually co-founded UWT's Hackathon that started this year. And I know one thought that came to mind was like, I guess, how would you, like, from your guys' perspective, what would be a strong way for girls that are going into industry after finishing college to present those kind of projects that you create, like those gap-solid projects, especially if you're using like AI, artificial knowledge as a way? Cool.
Yeah, I'll speak to one part of it. And one thing I wanted to mention here, like, as you think about decentralized AI, as a business person, as an app builder, why this matters, you need to build a moat around your business. Otherwise, you got nothing. So I'm just going to kind of say that up front. I know it's maybe a little bit of hard news. So the idea of decentralized AI, again, is you have the ability to have some level of control over your app, your website, your solution, your business as you do this, right? It's a really important factor, especially if you have something unique, right? Something that you can monetize. So you have to consider, like, do I give it to Google? Do I give it to Apple? Whoever it may be, right? Because again, if you read through the terms and conditions, anything you're sharing with them is fair game, right? In terms of that data that you share, right? Decentralized AI actually gives you some level of control, right? To have the ability, like, hey, I've got this great idea to build a business or this app. And I think about this a lot because a lot of the businesses that I interact with, these are questions that actually come up on a daily basis, right? Is like, how do I build a moat around my idea, my business, the thing I'm trying to do? And so I think that's a really important consideration as you think about this.
Airstream. Oh, more question. Oh, okay. Well, just hold on your question just for a second. So we have about 20 minutes left, and I can stay for a little bit longer. I don't know if you guys can. If you guys want to, we can stay for a little bit longer afterwards too. But in your answers, let's think of advice that we can give the folks in this room about how to get involved quickly, how to learn in any of the answers that we do for any of the audience questions. Think of resources that we can drop, books, links, blogs, podcasts, speakers, whatever, as much as possible in our answers. And who are the hands, please? Could you? I don't know who was first. You do repeat. Okay. Yeah. Haka.
Well, you talked about partnership with the universities, right? That means it quite protocol digestive and like on perspective with faculty just put it right.
Correct.
But I can label us. I'm kissing all that. Maybe some of us here are yes to be out of the campus and up there. We go down in the periodic school. How are you going to get us involved? Learn that we but students that what upper hearts but we yet become interested.
Well, I'd say like there's always like alumni associations and distribution lists, whether or not you're currently a student or not a student. And so I'd say just make sure you stay engaged with your university and community, and the knowledge should get out to you. But I'll hand this off to Kyle or Matt or a faculty member.
I just want to make sure I understand the question. It's if you are a former student, and how can you participate in the university partnership in this in this respect if there was a partnership between some of these decentralized AI foundations and the university.
Yeah, I mean, like, how can I participate? It is when I'm not a student, because you mentioned the partnership with the university. That means the students and the faculty.
Yeah.
Now I'm not a student anymore.
Whether it's with DCG and their, hundreds of companies or Art Block, I think the best way to get engaged is to just literally reach out. Most of these communities are open to the public, so you can join their Slack groups, their Telegram groups, their what is the other one? Discord groups. So like get involved in the community, and being part of the community is being known. So like, speak up, ask questions, get connected. I used to do like roundtables with CTOs, chief technology officers, and they'd say, hey, like look at our white paper, download our code, do some bug bounties and fix bugs, help write documentation, help, if you're not a coder, then, help manage the community, answer questions, ask questions, and then answer those questions for other people who will have the same questions. Just like get involved and become known. Is one of the best ways that I've heard, whether you're in the Bitcoin community or you're in, other protocol communities or you're in the AI community, it's literally get out and get involved. And then within the greater Seattle area, we have like meetups every month. We have several, at least one a month in Tacoma through the WTIA. So there's different startup groups. We have accelerators, we have investor meetups, you name it. There's tons and tons of resources. There's also an applied AI group, and so they just met a couple of this week, and it was a really good one. They have another one coming up on defense and AI, and how AI is used in the Department of Defense. So like lots of different kind of meetups. Get out and get involved. There's tons and tons of different communities. Do you want to add to that?
All I'll say is, the theoretical partnership that we're talking about now, like I've started to do university outreach. There's no rules of the road here. So we're kind of figuring it out as, we're building the plane as we're flying it. And, which I think happens a lot in the technology world. You could probably speak better to that than me, but, I also think that, I'm not sure what your specific background, but if you studied this type of stuff in university, if you were an engineering student or a business student, like there may be opportunity for you to collaborate on the project. I mean, I think that's the students that do participate in this hypothetical hackathon will certainly need guidance from professors and people who have already completed their programs, gone out and worked in the real world. So there may also be those type of opportunities as well.
Sure, I'll say something. By the way, what is this hackathon? Sounds amazing.
The way to
What's that?
mention way, Professor Decentralized
Oh yeah,
session is
yeah.
here. Yeah,
I think it's Dr. Wei Kai.
yeah.
Yeah, who does decentralization here at UW Tacoma. If you haven't met him,
He's a new professor here.
yeah, he's good friends with our CEO. As a side note, one comment. This applies to your question, but I think generally here, and one of the things I talked about yesterday was in the AI space. One of the things you see happening right now is I'll refer to it as open participation. A lot of people are working and building publicly because of AI, because people are trying to work with engineers, right? And a lot of this comes through like vibe coding, vibe marketing. Not sure if any of you are doing that, but if you're not, you should be. But it's kind of this idea of open participation. So for example, if you follow me on X, you literally will know where I am each day, right? Because we're out openly talking about it, and we want people to come. We want different ideas. And so in terms of getting involved, I mean, that's really up to you in terms of that. I think one is you're here, right? So you are connected. So you're already, 2 steps of the way. But the other part is like, if you have a community you're interested, or you have a program you're interested in, I would bet you that they're kind of following this open participation model, right? It's no longer about open source. It's about participation, right? People want to come build together and join at the hands to do this, right? And that's something I've seen that's new in the industry over the last 6 months as we do this.
Yeah, definitely use X and to follow people. It's huge in the sort of decentralized AI crypto space. If you're following BitTensor, or if you're following various different protocols, Art Block, I'm sure, has evolved. So yeah, that's a good way to like just key in. People are open to talking. It's new enough where I don't think anybody has too big of a head.
Hold on. The plaid shirt. You had a question? Sorry, I don't hear any names.
I have scenario like where I want to have a site that it needs a lead generation model for generating images with the user's prompts. So I have one option I have is using OpenAI models or Gemini, let's say. Or I could post my own model like stable diffusion purposes on my own sheet and use that. So that I don't have to pay 10 cents per request to the OpenAI or anything. So in this kind of scenario, or let's say I have like all the requests per day, which one will you satisfy? Having decentralized where I can post a model or use somebody's model for the request and paying only like very less amount money time paying to the OpenAI.
You want me to talk to it? Yeah, I mean that's just a cost benefit analysis on that. It's anybody who's used the new like VO3 from Google. Anybody tried that? It's pretty awesome. And also they got the Imagen 4, I think just came out just recently as well. I think twofold. One is like really just understand the economics behind it. I mean, for me, that's the way we always evaluate it, because the reality is with at some level, right, you can go to Google and get free credits for X amount of images per month, right? And the reason they do that again is A, you're giving the data, but then B is they want to bring you into the in the infrastructure side. In terms of doing that yourself, I would come back to you and challenge you and say, well, if you can build a better model, by all means, I would go for it. People are hungry for this ability to create imagery, et cetera. It kind of goes back to my comment about building a moat around your business. If you can do something unique, different, interesting, and there's some secret sauce under the hood, under that AI, you can definitely take that to market. There's a lot of people really interested and hungry for these alternative solutions outside of what you see. The reason people use VO3, Imagen or Sora, again, it's just speed, accessibility, right? It's something that's right in front of them. It doesn't cost me anything, or maybe it costs me $20 a month in terms of doing that. So it's really just kind of understanding what you're trying to do and the best way to accomplish that. But I would encourage you, like if you think you could do it, I would go for it, especially initially, right? In terms of that compute and GPU.
Share with them what you're doing every day. You're building something.
Oh, you want me to talk about that?
Talk about that.
Yeah. So for the group here, one thing you might find interesting or not interesting, like many of you, I'm more of a business person, kind of on that side. I come from marketing, product marketing. One of the things as I've moved into the AI space is over the last 60 days, I made a decision a couple of months ago that I'm going to build one project per day, every day.
What's project mean?
Project?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a website, could be an app, could be a service, could be a solution, could be a SEO scanner. There's like if you go to my X again, there's a range of different things that you see that I build.
What is your X?
We'll talk. Let's talk about it later.
What is your X?
It's Rob Roy Hobbs. So it's a combination of the best baseball player ever. You know the movie The Natural, which probably people don't.
I know that.
But the premise behind that was is learning to use the tools that you have access to, right? But also more importantly is understanding what they can actually do for you. If you have an idea, I go back like as an accountant, for example, right? I've got an idea like, hey, there's one of the great apps I've seen build is somebody built a receipt analyzer and then translate it into basically like an accounting system where it's like here it all is. It's all broken down, by category, by expense. And I was like, what an amazing idea, right? In terms of doing something like that. And so kind of going through that process, like I would challenge all of you, like with Replit, Lovable, Bolt, there's all these services out there to sit down and to say, hey, what can I build? What can I try? What can I experiment with? And try to go through that exercise. And what I found as an example for myself after 2 weeks is I'm a nonlinear thinker. So I'll just kind of say that on the outset. Nonlinear thinker being I go from A to D. Like I don't do A, B, C, D. I go A to D. Like I'm straight at the end. Like what's the outcome? And I have to work my way backwards. But one of the things I found as I started building is I needed to add more structure to my projects, right? Hence the product manager, somebody that can do that. And so I needed to learn from my AI how to build a structure for my projects. As soon as I did that, boom, home run. Like from there on out, I've been, daily projects, 45 minutes a day is all it takes me now to do that. And I've created, again, SEO scanners, generative AI scanners, accessibility scanners. I built employment coach. I mean, you name it, right? And it's just that mental exercise to going through that. Because if you have an idea, you could build it. today, right? And whether you're a coder or whether you're an accountant, whether you're a business person, it's a matter of just sitting down with your idea and saying, okay, what does it look like? What do I want to do with it? In terms of that experiment. So I would encourage all of you to take a risk and try it, right? And Lovable, again, like Lovable, Replit, like these are, again, vibe coding platforms, right? There's some challenges along the way, right? But most of them offer like a free trial. You can just go in there and like, a lot of the claim to fame will be like, build an app in one prompt, right? Which, you can build a fairly good website with one prompt. Like, hey, I want to build a website to do something, right? But it's amazing because I have the ability to do it. I don't need necessarily a technical person, and the technical person doesn't need a marketing person anymore, right? It's kind of like twofold, right? Like whatever direction you go, like you have the ability to find support for whatever that topic is. So.
The net of the story is don't watch, don't read about it, go do it. Roll up your sleeves, get involved, go do it. And there's no excuse. No one is not technical enough. No one is not business marketing enough. Like anybody can do it. There's not, everything is at your fingertips. The tools, the knowledge, the networks, all here now at your fingertips. Did you ask a question?
Yes. So my question is, can you roughly explain the approach or procedure, how I integrate AI into my business? Do you have an old example for this?
How to integrate AI into your business?
Yeah.
An example?
Yeah, an example. So roughly.
Examples or use cases or ideas?
Yeah.
Who wants to go?
Can you tell me where I can look forward to the volumes?
Ideas, pointers.
Seems like
You could tough to.
go Matt.
I think you could talk to the business part.
Yeah, that's a great question. I ask myself that a lot. I mean, in terms of AI, I think the reality is, the first and foremost, this sounds kind of, I don't mean to be cheeky, right? But you can always sit down with AI and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you recommend, right? Or how would you accomplish this task, right? Or how do I build A, B, and C, right? In terms of doing that. And what you'll find, like if you were to go through like, as an example, and I use Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, and another tool each day. Like I don't use just one, I use multiple, right? And the reason being is because I like to, they actually provide different perspectives and different iterations on that. But what I really like to do is, if you read through my threads, is you'll see it's like a conversation where I really sit down and say, hey, I've got this idea. This is how I think I'll monetize it. I'm trying to find a way to use AI to accelerate adoption, right? Or drive conversion, or even moreover, like how do I make money from this idea, right? And it's pretty good. It actually will, the AI will definitely give you ideas about, oh, hey, you could do something like this. There's a great guy on X, Greg Eisenberg. If you haven't looked at that, he's got I call it an idea startup. I think it's called ideabrowser.com. And the premise behind that, and I had a similar idea and then found out that he had this, and I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of lame. But the idea being is, if you think about a business, like a business has many different parts, right? There's trend data, there's user data, there's monetization strategy, there's product and website, there's branding, kind of all these things, right? Not everybody, all of us are good at all of those things. I mean, I'm the first person to say I'm maybe good out of 1 out of 10. But you can use AI to kind of figure these things out. So as you start to develop a business idea, where AI can apply is you say, hey, AI, what kind of customer fits this type of business I want to create, or app I want to create? Or tell me a little bit about what's going on in Reddit related to this idea, right? Or, again, you can start to develop trend ideas, right? Keyword ideas, otherwise. And there's lots of different, you just kind of have to like explore, right? As you do that. The one thing I would recommend if you do that though is like, if you don't know or haven't done it before, like, look up like simple business plan template. And you can use that as your basis to go through and say, if I'm going to create a business or a startup, what are some like common things that I typically need to go through, right? And you can use that as your guide. And then you start asking these questions. And before you know it, within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, to be like, okay, generate a business plan of how I actually do this. Generate a website, right, to match my ideal customer profile. So, and what you'll find is like at the beginning, it's a little uncomfortable to do that. And I'm frequently uncomfortable when I talk to AI, because it usually will tell me I'm not very good at what I'm asking, and that's okay, right? Because the AI doesn't know any better, as you do that. It's there to help you. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question. I mean, it's just kind of like exposing the idea and just taking a risk and saying, because I was sharing with people earlier, like AI is not going to get mad at you. AI won't judge you, right? In fact, it's a great, kind of equilibrium or equalizer in the fact that I can ask as many dumb questions as I want, right? You always hear that adage, like, don't be afraid to ask dumb questions, right? But we all are. And I'm the first and foremost, I work with a company of a bunch of really technical people. I feel pretty dumb most of the time. So usually after the meetings, I will go on AI and say, hey, tell me more about this topic. Tell me more about this topic to try to educate myself, right? Because, it's not going to judge me nor get mad at me, right? As you do that. So
I just wanted to add about, part of the reason why I'm here, why DCG is focused on university outreach. As somebody who's also, I know many people in this room are technical people, are computer scientists, have a background in engineering or in business and things like that I don't. But the vast majority of people, or the majority of people in this world who use the internet, have no idea how the internet works, right? In the future, the vast majority of people who use AI will have no idea how AI works, how training works, how model. This is not going to be something that's focused. I believe that, and the DCG by extension believes that the universities, like the training that can have, are the people that are going to understand how AI works, how the models work, how these networks work, especially decentralized networks. I think a lot of people can, without university specialized education, do trial and error and mess around with corporate products that are generative AI. Even I can do that. And that's going to be a particular skill that's incredibly valuable to everybody, but it's going to be available to anybody who wants to pay the $20 a month or whatever it becomes. This is, I think, decentralized AI brings a unique opportunity to these universities, to University of Washington, in the sense that it provides the opportunity to actually learn the back end in a hands-on way. And that's why we are going to be putting effort, resources into trying to do something with the universities that want to participate, so that the students who do participate, when they go for a job at those centralized companies, just like in the last iteration of the internet, when, all the smartest people in the room at the Googles and stuff, they understood the back end. They know how the internet works. We want the next generation of students to understand how AI actually works and not just how to use it. And so I think that's the unique opportunity here.
And you as students, also as professors, as enablers, and those that empower the students, have a unique opportunity. Today in 2025, we're sitting in a pile of mess that was created starting in 1971, politically, monetarily, socially, digitally. I mean, after all, like, the digital mess that we're sitting in today was literally us taking the analog processes of, filing cabinets, writing letters, and then just digitizing it, just creating a digital complete mess. And so I'll grab your question. As you think of ways, and don't think of dystopia, think of newtopia. We're not going to get to utopia, but what is newtopia? And how can you reimagine the future, the digital future especially? An example I did is 20 years ago, I went to a bar and I gave the bartender my ID, and he showed up at my door 3 days later, right? All he needs to know is that I was over 21. We got my address, right? Because weird. In the future, imagine if your daughter or someone goes to the bar and they go beep. And that's all ladies know. Person's over 21. They don't need to know anything else, right? So that's a scenario reimagined. You can reimagine all of these scenarios when it comes to privacy, data, shopping, the information exchange, unnecessary information exchange we do with credit bureaus and credit cards and banks and educational institutions and financial institutions and employers. They have way too much information. So reimagine the future and then go build it. We have the tools in our fingertips. Your question. And then this will be the final one, and then we'll stick around for a little bit and we'll trade notes. And also, if you have any business ideas, any questions, want to look to us for resources, we'll leave our emails, and or you can use Professor Huiso to reach out to us. We're here and available as a resource to you as a community. Usually when we put this ask out there and as a resource, I think 1 out of 10,000 people actually take us up on it. So, be one of the 10,000. Like, don't be shy and take us up on this resource. All right, go.
Also, just too bad. Sally sends out all the marketing notices. Is it you clicked on that link? If you email Sally, she's the one to send everything out. She'll make sure that your information gets sent to the appropriate person.
Yeah. Please, last question.
Great. Hello, my name's Ismail, and my background, it's switched a lot. My first year at other college, it was in physics, and then right now, at economics, and I'm switching to finance. So I have a little bit of like an 1 inch deep in a lot of different things, I feel like. So
That's like me.
Could be governor.
So one of the things that I feel nowadays about AI is that it was like the Wild Wild West in the sense of where there's a lot of opportunity, and every time I think about it, my heart starts beating faster. So what do you think people like myself who are not purely technical, but this summer my plans are to get more technical, how could we prepare ourselves as quick as possible to actually catch this wave, sort like?
You mean as an opportunity?
Yeah.
You want to start?
Yeah, I'll just quickly. I'm kind of like you. I bounced around and did different things, right? My undergraduate degree, I studied ancient Greek.
Oh, really?
And then went into intelligence work. So it doesn't. It's weird trajectory that people can take. But I think it also shows a certain open-mindedness. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have gone down the rabbit hole on a wide variety of things that had turned out to be beneficial to me in the future, and later on. I would say to maybe use some of the social media things that Ari was referring to before. There's some great, the CEO of DCG, or the head of DCG, Barry Silbert, he recently did a podcast with Raul Paul. I would check that out. That's all about how he came back to BitTensor. He has a background investing in Bitcoin. It was like $1 or $2, right? And so building lots of businesses from that. And then, so now he's trying to do the same thing with decentralized AI. So I would try to think of some of that diversity of background or thought as maybe a strength, and that you're open-minded to different things. And then I think maybe utilize some of the resources that Matt was talking about before. There are some great benefits to centralized AI in that it can help you get really smart, or it can help you get really smart on topics that maybe you don't have the background on. And it can perform things for you as you have more of the creative ideas. It may be able to have some of the technical side and be the yin to your yang, so to speak. So that may be some ways to focus on.
So the great part about your question, by the way, I was kind of giggling when you said it, and the reason being is you just described basically every B2B marketer I know, by the way, and including myself. So many people don't know I'm a comparative literature major. Originally, I have a master's degree. I've been a certified information security manager. I've been a stockbroker. To your point, I have a pretty diverse background, right? And I think that's in some ways it's an advantage, in some ways it's a disadvantage, right? But I think again, going back to the example of AI, it's an equalizer in the fact that the things you don't know, you have a buddy or a partner now to help you. One of the ways I would start out, and I have this conversation fairly frequently, right, is if you recognize a problem, right, or there's something you see people have difficulty with, that's a startup idea, right? You want to solve problems, you want to drive value for people, right? And more often than not, if you have an idea and you see, hey, there's this thing that people do and people complain about it, or there's this, I really hate having to do these manual things. I mean, that's a great place to start, right? It's things and it doesn't require deep technical knowledge. It's more of God, that's annoying, right? And that's in my case, when I build my projects, that's usually where I start. Is it's like, hey, like there's this thing happening and it drives me nuts, right? So I'm gonna go work on that. Or I have a topic I'm really interested in, and a good example would be is like generative SEO, like generative AI, what they call GEO. It's SEO for for Gemini and whatnot. And I want to understand like what's the difference between SEO and that. What I quickly found out is there's actually hundreds and thousands of other people who also have the same interests, right, in terms of that topic, because they also want to know. So hey, I built a tool and said, hey, people can use it for free, and right now I'm getting 1,800 users a month, right, and it was just kind of like a side project, right, as an example. So that's a great place to start. But I would say don't be afraid to try it, right, as you do that. Another case in point is like if you are somebody who moves around, right, you can also build an app like, hey, how do I go from physics to accounting, right? You'd be, again, surprising like kind of what actually goes into that thought process, right? Like how do I transition as you do that? And so, yeah, don't be afraid of that.
I literally got into this business because I was reading and studying about, 6 years ago, reading and studying Bitcoin and all the implications for the financial system, learning about fiat currency and economics and energy, how it touches it all. And at some point I was like, I'm spending so much time on this, I might as well get paid for it. And, luckily some opportunities came along and I took advantage. And it was only because I had all of this knowledge that I had acquired through my own passion about it that I was able to hit the ground running and just start in that job. Right. And so, I think just having an interest and a passion, especially for a technology as early as this, decentralized AI, I guarantee you in the entire world, this is the only conversation at a university going on in the entire world right now about decentralized AI. That's how early we are at this. And so having that passion early, you will eventually meet somebody who has a business who may be looking for, maybe they don't need a technical expert, but maybe they need somebody like me who's good at communicating to policymakers. Maybe they need somebody who's good at communicating to community organizers. Whatever it is that they're working on, they may need somebody with your particular skill set combined with the passion for the technology, which to me, I've seen a lot of people come in and out of crypto and in and out of, technology sphere, the decentralized AI sphere, who have no passion for it. And as soon as things get hard, they try to move on. The passion for it and belief in the technology and the leveling the playing field is the biggest thing for me.
To summarize, be contrarian, don't follow just the trend, but think about where the trend is not yet, as they have said. Embrace long form content, podcasts like the one Kyle mentioned, books, things of that sort. Be multidisciplinary, so you may have hop many different things, but think of it as being multidisciplinary, as our panelists and myself have done. Connect and influence. So remember, the closest 5 people around you are going to be the biggest influencers. So pick wisely, choose your friends wisely, and choose those that are allowed to influence you wisely too. So find good community people, and then do it. Don't read about it. They'll have it all in your head. Just go do it and get actual hands-on experience. And with that, we will close. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and please reach out.